Yeah. Hello people, I'm Jaby Koay. Joining us is ACHARA KIRK.
Hi.
A big thank you to CGV Cinemas in Buena Park for sponsoring this video. You guys in the Los Angeles area or anywhere near Orange County, go to CGV Cinemas. They've got a great 4DX cinema as well as a wraparound cinema. Both are interesting experiences that I highly recommend. ACHARA and I actually got to go recently and they did some demos for us, and I gotta tell you, it's next level. Definitely worth checking out. Make sure before you die, go check out a film in 4DX. Make sure you go sometime between now and Halloween because they have the haunted theater going on. The whole theater is decorated in Halloween theme. All the employees dressed up in costumes and it looks dope. So happy Death Day. We'll start off with non-spoilers and then we'll go into spoilers. As you know, the easy reference is gonna be Groundhog's Day, where Bill Murray relived the same day until he learned his lesson. This isn't that much of a departure from that, it's just got spookiness in it. It's a horror, thriller, mystery.
Comedy? I feel like they were trying to shoehorn the comedy in, but I don't know if they quite succeeded.
Well, it doesn't say comedy on IMDb, but there is a definite comedic element to the whole thing, and that's sort of necessary whenever you're doing a film about someone reliving the same day over and over again. I think that for a film being about someone reliving the same day over and over again, it didn't feel that repetitious in a way that's kind of like irritating. There was a film with Jake Gyllenhaal that did the same thing, and a lot of people really liked that movie. I happen to be an exception where I was a little bit unhappy, particularly with the big second act, because it just felt repetitious. That may have been part of the point. I didn't feel that so much here. There were twists and turns that were taken in the film that kept me a little bit more surprised. Inherently, I'm not a horror film kind of dude. Like, I don't get scared. I'm just kind of waiting for things to happen, and I get bored with the scare tactics. I was more interested in this film in just the story, the characters, and the comedic moments. That was the stuff that was more intriguing for me. And at the end of the day, the film pretty much did what it's supposed to do. Like, the character starts one way and becomes a completely different person at the end. And I think that that was very effective. It was obvious in terms of character. It's a little bit predictable to see where it's going,
right,
but it had to go that direction. Like, there's no better direction for the film to go other than the way it did. So I appreciated that aspect of it. The story was functioning on a magic that never was truly explained.
Yeah, that's one thing that I was just like, why do you keep coming back to life? What magic? What's going on here? And that's never actually really explained, and you're left at the end kind of trying to put the pieces together and be like, well, maybe it's because of this thing,
right,
or we just have to accept that that's the premise of the story.
Right, and one of the elements that I liked that they added here was that she doesn't just relive the day and is perfectly fine. She relives the day and has injuries from the previous experiences, which doesn't make the most amount of sense, but I like that they added it in because it demonstrated that she was getting weaker over the course of the film. And so there was this sense of urgency to figuring things out, because if she kept dying, eventually she wasn't gonna come back, is the idea. I like that aspect of it. I enjoyed the film actually more than I thought I would. I think they did a pretty good job of explaining the other magical elements in the film. I don't wanna give anything away just yet until we get to the spoilers section. Overall, I would say that if you're, looking for a horror film to watch with a friend or take on a date, it's not the worst movie to go watch. It's actually, it's watchable. It's a watchable movie. It doesn't hurt the body or the mind to watch. I don't recall it being grotesquely gruesome.
You kind of infer a lot of the violence that happens, but you don't actually see a lot of blood or gore or anything like that, and it veers more along the comedy side, which works for me. It actually reminded me of, going to watch the classic teen slasher horror films like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
It was fun to have a scare, but there was still like an element of lightheartedness. But I feel like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer films were actually more scary.
One thing that I will say that I appreciate about the film as well, the way it finishes off, this is a one-off movie, at least as far as I can tell. They're not trying to have this Saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of thing. It's a one-time thing. It concludes itself. It's wrapped up in a single movie, and I did appreciate that. Okay, so spoilers now. I kind of knew from the beginning that her roommate was the killer. There was something just off about her, and then I thought, well, maybe maybe that's a false, what do you call it? A false bad guy. Like they want you to think that, but then it turns out it's not. It seemed like these characters were kind of caricature almost, or stereotypes.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure. Especially hers in the beginning, where she was this really bitchy mean girl. Yeah. I couldn't stand her in the beginning because
that's on purpose.
That's on purpose. But then later on, as you know, the story goes and she turns into a more likable human being, I started liking her a bit more.
The film certainly does the hero's journey. That's the whole thing. She doesn't leave anywhere, but she leaves her old habits behind. That's the hero's journey for her, is becoming this other person, saving the day, saving all these people. At one point, she does a self-sacrifice, which is big, because in her mind, she could have ended everything, right? Because she thought she was about to have the killer. But she deliberately sacrificed herself to come back one more day so she could save the guy that she was in love with. There were some weird things in the film where we just don't explain that. We'll just walk off and pretend, you know, things worked out. Like after she kills the guy at the hospital, after holding a knife to the guard's throat, the cops just let her go. Like,
yeah, I know, right?
That was just kind of weird. And then when she kicks her roommate out the window, she's just let go. Like no brought in for questioning, none of that. Okay.
Yeah, like oh, you just killed a girl?
I would imagine she's, you know, detained for a while because it would look like she just straight up murdered her roommate without explanation.
When I was watching this movie, I almost felt like they tried to drag it on to make a movie, because there was one moment in the film as she was trying to get through and the days kept repeating, I was like, it could be done now.
No, but that's how those movies always feel.
Really?
Yeah, that's how those movies tend to feel.
Maybe I haven't watched too many of those movies, but I was kind of like, okay, I'm over this now.
Yeah.
There's nothing new happening. I'm just kind of.
Yeah, no, that's how those movies are made to feel, and that's in part, like I said, like I was talking about earlier with the Jake Gyllenhaal movie, Source Code. That's what it's called. You're feeling what the character is feeling. They're sick of it too. They would like to be done and out of that movie as well.
But I just kind of felt like they were deliberately misleading you for so long.
What you have to take into consideration is that this exemplifies a perfect low-budget horror movie because they use the same locations over and over again. Try to imagine the production of this film. Okay, so we're gonna shoot this scene 20 times, and we're gonna shoot this scene 20 times, and something different's gonna happen each time. I almost don't even feel like you need to do more than one take for each of these setups because it has to be different anyway every time.
Right, yeah.
To me, from a production standpoint, I love this movie. From a production standpoint, I think this was fantastic. You had a bunch of actors who were probably paid all standard, what is it called?
Scale.
Because I don't know any of them. They were all they were unknowns to me as far as I'm concerned, who all want to be stars in movies. So that's why they would take a scale rate to do this movie, maybe even SAG low budget, who knows. They used the same locations over and over again, like I said, and they managed to make a cohesive story out of it. A sensible, watchable story, using very few locations, using the same talent over and over again. It was like a play. I think that with that in mind, that's every filmmaker's dream almost, to be able to tell a cohesive story, low budget in this way, like being able to make use of a few locations to tell a functional film that makes it into theaters nationwide. This mission accomplished. Christopher Landon, mission accomplished.
Good job.
Kudos to you, man. I mean, because I would love to fucking do that. I would love to be the dude who did that movie. I'll take credit for Happy Death Day, even though it's not the greatest movie. Like, because that is a movie that was made. It's a picture that's in theaters nationwide, low budget, and it had some scary moments. I could feel the audience, you know, getting scared a little bit. I mean, it did its job.
Jump scares, definitely.
Yeah, it didn't scare me at all.
No.
Like, I could have fallen asleep as far as scaring goes.
I got scared. I looked over at you and you're just chilling. I'm just there stuffing my face with popcorn so that I don't scream.
Anyway, at one point, when the monster is going after her in her room, she's looking for the remote. She's like, "Where's the remote?" Because everybody says that out loud. She's looking for it, and she can't find it, and the TV's turning on and off. And there's this kind of magical, ghostly, spooky element to the TV turning on and off randomly. And you're like, how does this monster who's controlling her, repeating this day over and over again, have control of the television like that? Well, like, what are the magical properties of this monster? Turns out, there's no magical properties. The lady, her nurse, roommate person, just had the remote and was fucking with her. That's all it was. And who knows how she was controlling that little Tinker toy. It's just a big fat coincidence that she knew exactly where her friend was gonna be so as to walk down that way into the under the bridge thing. Like, that's a fat coincidence, but they only did that once in the movie, so it's fine. But there was a little toy, little creepy toy, because those are always scary.
Yeah.
How she was able to control that remotely, I mean, wasn't really exactly explained, but she probably had a Bluetooth remote. I think that the storytellers could explain all the magic in the movie if pressed.
The one thing I appreciated a lot about this movie was that Tree was consistently a fighter. She wasn't just like a damsel in distress going like, I'm gonna die, oh my god, I'm gonna run up the stairs instead of down the stairs, because like that totally makes sense. I enjoyed that she fought, that, you know, she found weapons, she picked up a hammer in her room. She tried to survive every time, and I really enjoyed that about her, because I didn't want to just see another weak girl get repeatedly killed.
Right. She was a very active female main character. So
yeah,
there's that. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us, and thank you to CGV Cinemas for sponsoring this video. If you guys, if you're in the LA area or near Orange County, be sure to go to cgvcinemas.com, check out their 4DX theater. It's awesome. I'm telling you, it is the shit. I'm not lying. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check out ACHARA KIRK on the social media. Check out our other reactions, reviews, and short films. I'm Jaby Koay. This is
ACHARA KIRK.
Peace out.